Welcome back to the Adaptive Athlete Podcast, the place to hear stories from adaptive athletes in the CrossFit space and beyond. I'm your host, Matt Hotho. On today's episode, we're talking with Brett Palser. Brett's been competing for multiple years in the adaptive CrossFit space, and he competes in the seated 2 division with hip function. He also is a trainer at Deep End Fitness and just an all-around great guy. I can't wait for you guys to meet him and enjoy our conversation. Brett, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I've enjoyed kind of getting to know you a little bit in our pre-interview. It's been good getting kind of hear your story a little bit, and I can't wait to share it with everybody. So I feel like I got to know you at the 23 games when I met your wheelman, Roderick, and I knew him from Memes for Time. How did you two meet? How did he end up becoming your wheelman?
Sure. So I think let's back up to like when I first started CrossFit, right?
Yeah.
So I started CrossFit in 2019 at a gym called 1904, which I'm still there today. It's a gym here in San Diego, and 1904 actually had an adaptive program specifically, and a lot of that was not only adaptive athletes, but a lot of VA kind of veterans. So like folks from the VA would come and try out CrossFit, and from there. My coach, I had a coach, his name was Ray. He's one of the owners of 1904, and he was actually my first coach. And we're still really close and good friends. And Ray was actually my coach as I started competing in CrossFit, right? I originally started CrossFit just to lose some weight. I was pretty heavy. I'm a big guy in general, but I was even bigger than I am now. And I went to a doctor's appointment, and the doctor was like, hey, you need to figure something out, or we're going to start throwing all these meds at you. I didn't want to do that. So I found my buddy sent me an Instagram post from the gym from 1904 and said, hey, you should try this. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Not even know what CrossFit was. So I started CrossFit in 2019, started losing weight, and then, learning about the Open and all these other weird competitions CrossFit does, and has all these weird like 25.7. Like, what is this? I have no idea. Like,
do you round up to 26? How does it work?
Yeah. What is this Open thing you speak of? Like, I honestly, I had no idea. And then, so I started competing, and, Wheelwad kind of took those CrossFit workouts and made them their own, or they adapted them. Right.
Yeah.
And, so started competing, and then Ray was my coach in 2021 when I went to the first games in North Carolina, the first Wheelwad games in North Carolina. And then fast forward to, I would say like late 2022, 23, Ray, I love Ray. He's a busy guy, and he started having kids. Well, he didn't, but with his, with his wife, and, like priorities change, life changes. And I met I knew Roderick with Meme for Time through, through Instagram and looking at his memes, but I was trying to remember like how we got connected. I honestly don't remember. I think someone from my gym bought shoes from him or something, and then said, hey, I went and saw Roderick at his gym or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. And I think I reached out, I texted him, or I slid into his DMs.
There you go.
And said, hey, if you're interested in coaching an adaptive athlete.
Yeah.
And, we started talking, and then, sure did. And so he was coaching me, he was writing programming for me, and I would go to his gym down here in San Diego. And we'd kind of work together. And then he was my wheelman in 2023. And I think that was a huge like thing for him, or a big eye-opening. You'd have to talk to him, but Roderick and Ray, for that matter, they've been in the CrossFit space for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever seen the adaptive CrossFit space, right? And I think when we went to North Carolina, when Roderick came and he was my wheelman, I think he looked and saw the awe of what these athletes are capable of and what they can do, and like that just sparked something in him. And no, I know Roderick, he goes a million miles an hour, which is not a bad thing, but I think it was awesome. And then, cut to mid 2023, Roderick has a lot of things going on. And we had a really great conversation, and he actually introduced me to George Briones with Omni Athlete. And George is a great guy. And so George is my coach with Omni Athlete. And where this is crazy, where it kind of comes full circle, right? So it started at 1904, right, with Ray. And then I still at that gym. My wife still goes to that gym. I'm still a big part of that community at 1904. And then I met Rolo, and then we started working together. And then he introduced me to George. Well, George and Ray used to coach like together at 1904, like semifinal teams in like 2016. Like it's kind of full circle.
Wow.
And so I remember when Roderick introduced me to George, I talked, I still really close with Ray. I was like, hey, Ray, like, do you know this George Briones guy? He goes, George Briones? He goes, oh yeah. I go, cause I was like, just kind of vetting him. Like I didn't really know who George was. And I'm like, hey, I do know. He goes, yeah, dude, like that dude's like he's a good dude. Like you should go forward with him. And so, George and I had now been working for about a year and a half now. And it feels like we've been friends for the last 25 years. Like, yeah. So it's crazy. Like we text each other all the time, and actually we're trying to go run all the time. And well, I'm not running, but you know what I mean. So
you're wheeling. You're wheeling.
Wheeling. There you go.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of like the long, and like I kind of wanted to tell that whole context story of how it's just kind of full circle now. And then what's really cool now is, that was back in 2016 with George, and
right.
Now George has Omni Athlete, and he's actually renting some of the space in 1904, and it's just like this crazy full circle, like bringing people together thing. It's wild. So
yeah. And one thing that I loved in your story was you talked about how like when Ray went and saw the 21 games at Neuse River, and when Roderick saw the 23 games at the Expo Hall, it's like something ignited within them of like, oh my gosh, this adaptive community is amazing. I was fortunate enough to bring my coach with me to 23, and he was like, oh man, I'm coming back for 24, whether or not you make it. He was like,
right.
I just want to be in this community. Is that how, do you feel like Ray felt the same way? I mean, I know Roderick did because he's still a part of the community, but.
I mean, I think Ray felt the same way. Roderick, same with George, right? Yeah. 2024, that was the first year George ever coached an adaptive athlete and went to the games, and it's just a different it's just a different animal than like I want to say able body, right? Like the CrossFit games. It's just it's not less, it's not more, it's just different in its own way. And I think it's rad to see some of the capabilities of these athletes, right? And just there's some good races in seated 2. Last year we were talking, last year, I don't remember what the event was, but it was like between me, Mike, and Tom, and we were within like 2 reps of each other. I think it was like the snatch where there was like, I think it was like most amount of snatches. And then it was like a buy-in and then snatch. Yeah. I think I got 42, I think.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you remember what the weight was on that?
95.
That's insane.
Or 85.
That's insane. Because
I think it was 85 because they were the shorty bars, which I think are 35 pounds, and then 225, so that would be 85.
Okay. Yeah.
So, right.
Well, that's insane because neuromoderate, I think ours was 75 or 85, and we could use our legs, and you guys are banging those out without your legs. That's just crazy.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So, it's, you kind of go into that dark place, and God love George, but not only am I think I'm going to be deaf here soon. Like, I love George to death, but yeah, he definitely is like yelling in my ear. And like, afterwards I was like rubbing my ear. I'm like, oh man,
cause you've got him right there. Was he your wheelman too?
Oh, yeah. Geez. George was my wheelman last year. Yeah. He's right in my ear, which I wouldn't want it any other way. Yeah. So, and we have those talks, right? Like, hey man, like, you need to be, if something's going on, you need to be screaming at me. And so he does. But yeah, that was a close race. I don't know. Was it double-sided coin? I think
Yeah,
that was
that's
the
what it was called.
workout. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, no, that was, especially for having so many short workouts in 24, even with the programming constraints that they had, I think they did a really good job of creating some great races.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, the short workouts were interesting. Like, and I totally get it, right? There's 300 athletes, 15 divisions, and only so much time in a day, right? Those guys at Wheelwad, man, it's just amazing what they pull off. Like, and so I'm excited for Vegas and what they have to offer there. I heard there was like going to be 2 stages, I think, this
Yeah.
year, or 2 floors. So I'm curious how that's going to look. Ideally, like, with 2024, all the workouts are really short. I think it'd have been interesting to get some longer workouts in there just to kind of test some of the people's engines. I mean, we had that big long test, like ski, row,
But it
run,
was
or something like that.
it was just monostructural. It wasn't
Exactly.
like a big chipper, right?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see.
Or like that
Yeah.
waterfall that they had in 23, where you were able to mix like monostructural with some more kind of weightlifting and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I beat not Kevin. I beat Tom on Karen on that one. So
hey, there you go.
So
thank you.
The one and only.
The one and only. But hey, you got it.
I think I beat him in a lift too in 2021, and that was it. So
that's how I felt in 24 when I beat Kevin in 2 parts of the 3-part combine workout. I beat him on the rope climb. Come down off the rope climb, and the announcers go, "I think Kevin Mayer won that." And then I start like dancing underneath my rope, and they're like, "Actually, Matt Hotho's over in lane 8 dancing. I think he might have won that one."
That's funny.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the start of your CrossFit journey. So you walk into 1904 in 2019. That's a lot of numbers right there.
I didn't walk. So,
oh,
you know what I mean?
I got to leave that one in there. So you go into CrossFit 1904 in 2019, and what is that experience like? I mean, do you tell them, hey, help me? Like, what did you know about your abilities, inabilities, your limitations, that kind of stuff when you wheeled into that gym?
I knew nothing. Yeah. So I got hurt in 2007 from a ATV accident. So if you Google Glamis sand dunes out here in California, that's where I got hurt. I grew up going out to the desert, riding quads, motorcycles, dune buggies, and So the reason I'm kind of bringing that up is I never I never worked out or had a workout regimen. I mean, I wrestled and played baseball in high school and before that, but it was like, hey, like let's bench 225 for reps, right? Or it was like bro workouts, right? It wasn't like CrossFit. And then right out of high school, when I graduated high school, I got a job with the utility out here, and I wanted to be a lineman. And I was kind of working my way to become a lineman, and right, that was my gym, right? I was like working out in the field all day, carrying, tools, like digging ditches, like that was my gym. Like you want to talk about functional fitness, like that was my, hey, dig this trench from here to there, 4 feet deep, like 3 feet wide by hand, right? So so I never went to a gym, or I never really learned a proper gym mentality, right? And then I got hurt. Broke my back. I was off work for 3 years, 2 or 3 years. And then, after I started getting some of my learning abilities, right, I gained a ton of weight. You go from being super active, riding motorcycles, working in the field, to just literally sitting all day and eating Doritos and burritos and soda. It's going to happen. And, so yeah, I went to the doctors, and the doctor's like, hey, like you need to figure something out. Like your levels are way too high for your age. You shouldn't be here, right? You know, you're gonna have a heart attack here pretty quick if you don't change something. So my buddy Chris, he was doing CrossFit, and I had no idea what CrossFit was, and I was kind of telling Chris like, yeah, I'm trying to find something to do. I have no idea. And then he sent me an Instagram post from CrossFit 1904, and the reason it's called CrossFit 1904 is like, so 1904 is 19 is the letter S in the alphabet, and D 4 is the letter D, SD, San Diego. I'm pretty sure that's why
I thought they were like 100 years ahead of CrossFit, which started in 2004. And they were like, nah,
No.
we've
Nah. So, yeah, so he sent me an Instagram post of like, it was a picture of Ray, like helping an adaptive athlete. And he was like, hey, they have an adaptive class with CrossFit. You should try it. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea what CrossFit is. And so I rolled in there one day, and there's a guy named King. He was one of the owners at the time. And I walk in, and he's lifting, and he's got like the goggles on, like was a Jeremy Wade from the basket. He's got, you know, the high socks and all this equipment. And I walk in, I'm like, what the heck what is going on here? What is this? Right. And he's like, oh yeah, man, like we have an adaptive program. It's Tuesday, Thursdays. Come on in. And
did you even know what adaptive meant when you walked in? Because I felt like I didn't know what the word adaptive was.
I mean, in the sense of like, I figured it was, I mean, just to be blunt, it was some kind of fitness class with dudes in wheelchairs.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like that's kind of like my mindset. Like I didn't think of it as like adaptive as how we think of now as adaptive CrossFit. And that like, I just like, yeah, there's guys that are probably hurt or something like that, and they're going to help or something. Right.
Yeah.
And, yeah, go in and, went to the like first class, and I don't know, I just loved it. It reminded me a lot of like kind of like the grunt work and stuff, like the training I used to do for wrestling, right? I loved wrestling in high school. I think, you know, if I had had half the knowledge I have now of fitness, I like could have gone all the way, but now I'm sounding like Uncle Rico, right? I could throw a football over those mountains. Like, yeah. So, but hey, like, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, right? So, yeah, and then it just kind of blossomed into there, you know, and then I went from just doing the adaptive class and then learning, and then it's like, okay, like let me get integrated into like the like regular classes, right, with the able bodies. And so I started integrating into that, and then we started competing, and it's like, oh dang, like if I'm competing, then I need to like have like kind of a subset or like you know, I need to train a little bit more. So, you know, then the addiction started, right? It's like, hey, I need this weights at the house. Let's have a rower. Like, let's convert the garage into a gym. And so we've done that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like how I guess I started with CrossFit and with 1904. And you know, the gym, with any gym, so it's been what? So 6 years. And with any gym, right? There's always change, and it's always like there's just change. Change is inevitable, no matter what you do or who you are. And it's been great, and the change has been good, and just the different faces and people and weightlifters, and it's a great community. And I'm really proud and happy to be a part of that 1904 community, and also bringing others into the fold, right? Who are used to be in the community, like George and Omni, and now kind of back into that community, and that whole like circle. Yeah. That whole circle, it's just wild. Like, you know, everything comes around. So
for sure. So I have a memory in 2019 when I first started CrossFit of like struggling to power clean 65 pounds and being like, okay, oh man, like one day I'm going to get this. And now I can like, you know, power clean like 155, 165 in a workout.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, bragger.
Like, okay, sorry. Just gotta, you know, just throwing it out there. Wait, this isn't about me. Sorry, I'm interviewing Brett here. Why am I saying this story? No, the story is, I tell that story because are there moments that you have that you could look back on from 2019 and be like, I worked so hard to get this skill or this weight moved that now I'm like, oh, it's so cool to see that change, that can happen.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, right? Like, I still have Facebook, and they have
Dude,
like the face.
weren't we saying before how old we are? Like compared to the
Yeah,
other competitors?
right. I tease my wife all the time because she's like, I posted something on Facebook. I'm like, what are you, like 90?
Yeah.
Like, like,
No. In a group on Facebook. What are you? No.
I was like, you need to get on Instagram, get with the cool kids, but it's okay. So, no, but with Facebook, right, they have like those memories, right,
Yeah.
that pop up, and some of the memories that come up, it's like I'm watching and I'm like, oh man, dude, like I think I posted something like me trying to like, I don't remember if it was trying to clean 85 or I don't remember, but I'm like, dude, like that's crazy. And like here in 2024, we're like with the workout double-sided coin, it's like we're going like buy in and then like snatch at 85, right?
Right.
So
For 42 in like, 2.5 minutes.
don't quote me on that 42. I think it was 42. I'd have to double check.
I have the
Like,
internet right here.
if you have the internet, let's look it up on the internet. I don't know for sure. So yeah, don't quote me. I don't want to be putting fake news out there.
Let's see here.
So
Let's see here. Oh my God, there's so many categories. Hold on one second. Still scrolling.
file search, V lookup, like.
Oh my God. No, I'm in the open now. I'm screwing this up so bad. All right, here's the games. Let's see. Seated 2 with hip and double-sided coin. What number did you have in your head?
42.
It was 42, man.
Oh, I was right.
Tiebreak time of 2 minutes.
I knew it was 40. I knew it was in the 40s, but I couldn't remember exactly where it was.
You got second on that workout.
Yeah. So, yeah, and Pretty Boy got first. So,
yeah. You don't want to know how many Pretty Boy got.
Probably like 79.
58.
Yeah, I love, like I said, I love that guy. I'd do anything for him, but it's all good though. No worries.
Okay, so speaking of the division you're in, seated 2 with hip. So I realize that all the classification stuff might get lost on people who aren't adaptive, but that's a huge part of the community, right? Is figuring out where do people go to be classified. And so you have a spinal cord injury, but you're in seated 2 with hip. Can you tell me just a little bit about kind of what sets you apart from someone like Haley or David that we've interviewed in prior episodes?
Yeah, I think a lot of that one has to do with the location of the injury on the spinal cord, and also the type of injury, right? So I think technically my injury level is an L2, but I have damage on my T12 and my T11 from my motorcycle accident. But I'm also an incomplete injury, so my spinal cord wasn't completely severed. It was nicked, I guess. I don't know. There's been a lot of talks. I had a lot of talks with doctors, but the biggest thing it has to do with kind of your ability to engage your core muscles and your hip flexors, right? So, think about it from sit-ups, right? Think about it from like if you're doing sit-ups, right? Someone with hip flexors, even though it's hard for me to do because I do have hip flexors and hip function, but it's not like complete hip function, right? It's there, but it's not like 100% of someone who maybe was not injured or someone with not a spinal cord injury. I can do sit-ups like unassisted, right? So I can engage that bottom core, I can engage those hip flexors, and I can pull myself up into a sit-up. Are sit-ups fun for me? No, they are not. Like, I'm not a fan of sit-ups. They're a thing that needs to be done, right? But that's something with hip function or something that I could do, right? Whereas someone without hip function may need that med ball, right, to help bring them up with that momentum to come up overhead into that sit-up position. And and then also core, right? So you're thinking about from a barbell perspective, or from let's take a barbell, right? You're lifting a barbell overhead. You're locking out those arms. You're engaging that core muscle. You'll see a lot of guys, they'll kind of be without hip function, maybe leaning back a little bit, kind of working that chair, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, to for that balance perspective, or try to find that sweet spot to hold that overhead. And that's not like an abilities like fault there. That's just um, a balance, right? That's based on their injury.
Mm-hmm.
Where with me having that core function, there's a lot more stability in holding something overhead, not only heavier, but just not relying so much on the chair to hold yourself there, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Like you could
Or
be at
kind
the
of
top of a lift and someone could say to you, Brett, put your head through the window. And you could put your head through the window and not completely fall forward.
correct. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
a perfect description of that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's interesting, right? Like spinal cord injuries they're like snowflakes. Like they're all very different. And
Mm-hmm.
you could have two people with the same injury level, but two very different abilities. And I think that's what makes it a challenge to classify anyone in wheel wad, right? Um, because just because you have the same injury level doesn't mean you have the same abilities. And I also think it's like, hey, like, let's say you're a seated one and you start doing CrossFit, and you start getting better, and you start doing workouts, and maybe you had balance all the time, or that core, and that CrossFit fired your core up, right? And now that core is working for whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you get reclassified into seated two. I think that's just the way it is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's grateful. Or I think that's something that's interesting to see. You know what I mean? And but yeah, it's tough. Like my hat's off to those guys doing the classifications, because like it's hard to adaptive sports and wheel wad, specifically adaptive CrossFit. It will never be apples to apples.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is. Like there's it's not there's no monostructural, like it's not a monostructural sport. So it's hard to compare like everyone's abilities and disabilities and make it fair. I mean,
Right.
it's as fair. It's as fair as possible. And if I didn't think anything was fair, I wouldn't compete. You know what I mean? But look at me and Tom, right? Tom Miazga, like that guy he can squat with a safety bar, right? And he can do like, like he can kind of stand and stuff, and I can't. Does that have an advantage? I mean, maybe it could, but like I'm not like pointing at Tom like, oh, you're cheating because you could
Yeah.
stand, or that's not the way it is, right? So I think the way the classification, at least, so I really pay attention to the seated. I don't pay as much attention to the other divisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should. Maybe when I retire, whenever that may be, I'll start really digging in, because I think whenever I decide to retire, I think I really want to start focusing my time in helping refine the adaptive CrossFit, if they'll have me. Have me.
I'm right there with you, man. I feel like they're going to get this wave of retired adaptive athletes that are like, we're here and we are ready to help. Okay, so I've got a lightning round for you. Can I throw a couple of questions at you? All right. Here we go. So it's 2023. You're doing wall balls against Kevin Ogar. Okay, if Roderick had not tackled Kevin Ogar in that infamous workout in 2023, would you have beat Kevin Ogar to the finish line?
14 pounds or 20 pounds?
14.
8 foot or 9 foot?
9 foot. Lighter ball, but higher target.
I think I could. I think I could beat him.
Yeah. I think you could have beat him fair and square. If anybody hasn't seen that video, by the way, go look up Roderick tackling Kevin Ogar at the finish line. It's a good one.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was
really funny.
awesome. Okay. So if you're in the gym and you're picking the music, what are we listening to?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? We are doing... Oh, man. All right. We are running back hanging phrase from the games. So we're running back hang, clean and jerks, and pull-ups.
We'll go a little Thunderstruck, a little AC/DC, because that's going to be quick. We need to get fired up.
Something sub 5. All right. Now I'm throwing you another one. We're doing a bit more of a grindy workout. Helen. So we're going to be going for a little while. So we got some wheeling. We've got some kettlebell swings. We've got some pull-ups.
We'll go some country, some Morgan Wallen,
Okay.
Not so pounding bam, bam on the head, Just a little Zach Brown band, just to clear that mind out, because it's going to be a little bit of a grinder.
A little bit of a grind. So. I like that. All right. And let's say you're gearing up for this grinder, this Helen workout. What are you fueling with beforehand? What's your go-to snacks? Food? Any food? Just whatever.
I mean, a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbs.
Do you have like a, like right before you hit the floor, or like right as you're warming up for an event, do you have like a go-to like snack food to get that like quick energy boost in? Okay.
I don't. Actually, I'm really careful. I get really bad. I get really I shouldn't be saying this on this podcast.
Are you telling me?
I get really nervous before I go on, and like my stomach starts turning.
Bro.
And, like, I've actually, like, last year I had to go to the medical and ask for like Tums like 3 times, because I was like, no, legitimately, I get really nervous. Like, I've never thrown up or nothing, but yeah, my stomach starts turning.
Yeah.
So I'm really conscious on like what I eat or like intake before I like go out onto the competition floor.
For sure. Do you think those nerves ever go away?
No.
Yeah. Do you think the more experienced athletes still get those nerves?
I mean, I feel that I'm pretty experienced and I get those nerves still. So
sorry, I didn't mean it quite like that. I meant like a Miazga, like a Miazga, right? Like
for sure. I mean, I hope so, because that's what makes the competition like intense, right?
That's true.
And I didn't take the question that way anyways, but I mean, I hope so. I mean, it's just it's a crazy feeling, right? Like, here you are, you've done all this work, you're gearing up to go on the floor. There's the stands going, the music's playing, and it's just like they corral you up, right? And you're sitting there and you have nothing to do. And like, I have ADD, like not diagnosed, but if you ask my wife, I have ADD, but I'm just like, dude, I need to do something. Like, I'm sitting here, like, we need to like go now, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then it just like, and then you step out, and then it's like after that first rep, it's like, all right, we're good.
We're going.
And so
that's true. Yeah. I think I get so far away from competition that I forget about it. And then when someone talks about it, I go, no, that doesn't happen. Right. And then you're there again and you're like, oh yeah.
I mean, I get nervous like that doing the open or the semifinals, like in the gym. Like, I just, it's just a lot of it's pressure, but it's just a lot of like, you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket to get to the games, right? Mm-hmm. And if something goes wrong, or whatever, you know what I mean? You might not have a second chance, to get there. And, from a video standpoint and a standard standpoint, it's just making sure all those boxes are clicked, to make sure whatever you submit in your semifinals or your open is good, right? So
yeah. No, that's true. I think that is underplayed, the stress of the prepping for those virtual comps.
Yeah.
Of having to do all the video work and all that kind of stuff. All right. I got 2 final questions for you as we wrap up.
Yeah, let's go.
And these aren't lightning round questions, you can kind of ease into these. So if someone new to adaptive CrossFit is listening to this, if someone new to adaptive CrossFit is listening to this podcast, how would you encourage them if they want to get into a gym or they want to kind of try this thing out?
Someone that's new to adaptive CrossFit, how would I encourage them?
Yeah.
I would say, I say find a gym. I have not been to a gym like that wasn't accepting of someone that was adaptive, if that makes sense. Um, there might be a knowledge gap there, that you might have to work out, and there's a ton of resources out there to do that. But I think the biggest thing is just trying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to a CrossFit gym and they're doing Fran, doesn't mean you have to do Fran. Like we can adapt that,
Yeah.
and we adapt workouts, but both adapt and scale too for someone that's never done CrossFit. I think it's just jumping in, and it's jumping in. I think learning adaptive CrossFit and learning movements to whatever your classification is important. But I think the bigger thing is the community, right? If it's not a strong community and you don't have a strong backing, I don't think I don't think you can be successful. So it's finding that gym that has that strong community aspect. And if I think if you have that strong community, then everything else will follow.
Yeah.
Like meaning like the coaches there will learn about adaptive athletes, how to help that adaptive athlete. And it's a two-way street, right? The athlete needs to say, hey, I have no hip function. I can't, if I go down, I'm going down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the coach is like, okay, like if that happens, what should I do? And having that open dialogue communication between the two. And then I think the other thing is encouraging is um, that I would encourage athletes is don't be afraid to do things out of your comfort zone. And what I mean by that is like, for a spinal cord injury, right? At least for me, I was kind of taught after I got hurt is like, hey, don't fall out of your chair. Like if you fall out of your chair, you're like kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at it now, like that wasn't the right mentality. That's the first thing I should have learned how to do was get
Yeah.
back in my chair.
Yeah.
And before I discovered CrossFit and got kind of fit, I fell out of my chair a couple of times. I couldn't get back in my chair. I didn't know how to do it. I struggled with it. It was, I mean, I think even one time we called the fire department to come help me back in my chair. So the first time I got into my chair in the gym, I was freaked out. Like, I'm like, dude, what this is like, we're calling 911. And having that, getting back into my chair, even though it wasn't pretty, still happened.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just like, boom, boom, no big deal. But I think it's getting out of your comfort zone and shutting off that voice of what people, I'm not, how can I put this delicately, shutting off that voice of what the safety patrol have told you to not to do,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, obviously PTs know what they're talking about, but there's PT, there's theory, and then there's practicality, right?
Yeah.
So we could talk about theory all day, but in the real world, like this is how it's going to go, from either a transfer standpoint or whatever. And I think if you encourage adaptive athletes to step out of that comfort zone, try things they've never done, right? Getting out of the chair. I don't know, for your division, like what would be a big scary
Getting upside
thing?
down.
Getting upside down, right? Like you can do it. It's not comfortable. There might be some other things that happened, but hey, like think about think about that accomplishment of you getting upside down and how that
Mm-hmm.
can how could that translate in just to everyday life, right? And doing things outside of your comfort zone, just to get better.
Yeah.
So that's how I would encourage it. Encourage folks. And I had my daughter. She was in cheer last couple of years, and one of the moms there, she was a quadruple amputee, quadruple.
Mm-hmm.
And so she, we were talking, and she said she wanted to, go to the gym or try the gym out, try CrossFit. So I was like, okay. I was like, come to my house and we'll go through a workout. And I think I told her, I was like, all right, get on the floor. And she's like, what? Like I don't think she ever had like that, like bluntness
Mm-hmm.
of like getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then After a couple of weeks, man, she started like strict pressing, like with her
Wow.
with her prosthetics, dude.
Yeah.
And dude, she's an animal. Like I love her to death, and her whole family. But um, I don't think she was expecting, like, she's used to me at the cheer competitions, the cheer
Mm-hmm.
dad, hi, and then it's like, all right, let's go. And the what? Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So um, that's what I would encourage that's what I would encourage adaptive athletes, if they're trying CrossFit out is don't be afraid to step out of that box. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
do it safely.
Of course.
If you're doing something that's a little wild, make sure you got a spotter, you know what I mean? But it's like once you cross that peak, that valley, like you just feel unstoppable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I would
That's
approach that.
that's amazing. I want to check back in with you later on her journey because I think that's just so cool to see somebody like that, like strict pressing and getting to use their body in a way they probably never thought they'd be able to.
Yeah, it's amazing. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So
All right. Last question.
okay,
If you could go back and talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell them?
how young?
How young?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. Pick the age when you were your most rebellious. The age that you look back on right now and you go, "Oh God, I was that." For me, that's like 14.
Mm. What would I tell my younger version of myself? Um, I don't know. That's a tough question for me to answer, right? Because for me, I've gone through all these trials and tribulations, which have shaped me into the person I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I want to go back and tell younger Brett to do anything differently because that might shape me in a different way, maybe in a negative way today.
Yeah.
So, um, have I had was I rebellious back in my day? Yeah, I look back at some of it. Maybe I guess if you're asking like maybe don't do some of the dumb things I used to do, like dangerous things, because I look back at some of the things I did. I'm like, legitimately, I think the spinal cord injury is like the least of what could have happened to me based on some of the things I used to
Okay.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess I'm lucky that I only got a spinal cord injury.
So like let's go to 20-year-old Brett like post spinal cord injury, right? Like let's say
Mhm.
that younger version of yourself. Could that Brett have ever imagined Brett today, 38 years old?
I don't know. I don't think so. Not definitely not in the adaptive world. Adaptive CrossFit. After I got hurt, like, I went through some serious depression
Yeah.
and I'm really lucky. So my wife, Kimberly, she was with me before I got hurt.
Mm.
We weren't married, we were dating, but she hung out the whole time. I like to say it was for my money, but I don't have any money. So maybe
It was for
my
your
looks,
looks, Brett. It was your looks. I mean, the way you've been
maybe
playing with your hair this whole time, I want to turn this into a video podcast.
it's so long. Like I'm getting a haircut today at 12 because
Don't
it's
do it.
ridiculous.
Don't do
It's
it.
ridiculously long. And it's like a bad habit, right?
The best habit.
No, so I don't know, like maybe just letting 20-year-old Brett, like, hey, everything is gonna be all right. You'll be good.
Yeah.
Just kind of stay the course. I probably would have told him to get into CrossFit earlier, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of the answer to that question.
Well, hey, thanks for being on the podcast, man, and for sharing your story. This
Of
was a
course.
ton of fun, dude. I feel like you've got this awesome energy and excitement and humor about you. It's been
Yeah.
nice to get to know you better.
Yeah, same, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, looking forward, to the future competitions. Looking forward to hopefully Vegas.
Yeah.
We'll party a little bit in Vegas.
I hear the Eagles are playing the Sphere on Friday night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
For what, $500 a ticket? Probably.
Probably. That's for nosebleeds.
Yeah, I'm cheap, so like maybe I don't know. You can get on my shoulders.
Yeah.
We could be a real tall. We'll wear a big trench coat, like just
Yes.
one ticket, please. And you'll just sit on my shoulders. So
That's a really tall man with a weird right arm, and he's on wheels. Yeah.
why are you judging me?
Yeah.
Like, So yeah,
I just really like the Eagles. Okay.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, man, it's cool. Well, I will definitely see you in Vegas.
For sure.
And yeah, dude, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Of course, man. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the podcast. If you know somebody who would benefit from hearing Brett's story or who is interested in adaptive CrossFit or adaptive sports in general, make sure you send this podcast to them. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. Like, subscribe, review the podcast so that more people can find these episodes and these stories of these amazing athletes. And if you're in Las Vegas and you see a guy in a trench coat that looks like me wheeling around the place, it's probably just Brett and I trying to get to the Eagles concert. I'm Matt Hotho, and I'll see you guys next time.